Raider Nation, what's going on? You guys are watching the Raiders Report, and I hope you're sitting down because we got a jam-packed show today. Is Josh McDaniels going to be the next head coach of the Raiders? We're going to talk about the latest going on around that story. Mel Kiper released a mock draft. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on who Mel thinks that the Raiders should take. PFF, they have somebody that the Raiders should target in free agency. Is Davante Adams coming to Las Vegas? And at the very end of today's show, more trouble for Nate Hobbs. Now, we're going to start this show off with Josh McDaniels, and is he coming to the Raiders? Because there's a rumor circulating right now that McDaniels should be considered a legitimate candidate to be the next head coach in Las Vegas. Now, Pro Football Talk, they went ahead and said that the Raiders could go ahead and make a run for him. Remember, the Raiders interviewed Dave Ziegler, who is basically the candidate to be the next Raiders GM, but Ziegler and then also Bill Belichick, those are like the top 2 guys in the New England Patriots organization. So last week when I talked about Jim Harbaugh, Ed Dodds, those 2 were connected. What's starting to sound like is this. During Ziegler's interview for GM, he also spoke up very highly of Josh McDaniels, and now people inside the Raiders organization, Mark Davis, are really actually thinking about going ahead and bringing in McDaniels because of how well Ziegler's interview went. And again, if you're trying to build a dynasty, what better way to do it than be able to take some pieces away from New England? Sure, they haven't been as great the last 2 years, and they don't have Tom Brady anymore, but everything that Bill Belichick and that organization have been able to do is pretty awesome. Now, some more smoke to these rumors circulating around McDaniels, circulating around Ziegler is on Friday or last week, the Baltimore Ravens, they let go of defensive coordinator Don Martindale. For those of you that are like, Mitch, what are you going here? What's the connection? Well, there is some rumors out there that Martindale really wants to be a head coach, and he was the linebacking coach for the Raiders back in 2004, 2008. The other report is that Martindale could actually be the defensive coordinator for Las Vegas if Josh McDaniels is hired, if Ziegler are hired. So all these things are kind of going into the equation of, do you want Josh McDaniels as the next Raiders head coach? I want you to go down in the comment section, type Y for yes, or I want you guys to go ahead and type your N for no. I still think that Jim Harbaugh is the favorite, but if you were to ask me who do I think is the second guy behind Harbaugh as the favorite, I'm actually going to go ahead and say Josh McDaniels, but Y for yes or N for no. The next story coming up here on the Raiders Report, because this is why I love the offseason. You're going to talk about the draft, you're going to talk about free agency, and Andrew Booth Jr., okay? This is who the Raiders went ahead and drafted, and Mel Kiper Jr.'s, that's ESPN's draft analyst's latest mock, number 22 overall. Now, I went ahead and said before that the only way I think that this pick would make sense is if you do not bring back Casey Hayward. I hope that the Raiders do bring back Hayward, but in the idea that they don't, then okay, then you can take Booth at 22. Here's what Mel Kiper had to say on the Raiders drafting Andrew Booth Jr. at pick number 22. This is another tough pick to figure out with general manager Mike Mayock out, and the Raiders now searching for someone to run their football operations. The Las Vegas roster has some issues, particularly along the right side of its offensive line in the secondary, so I went with the top cornerback left on my board. Now, I like seeing that from Mel because I do know he's a very good player, and I'm going to show you the second half here of this whole quote on why Mel went with Booth. But again, subscribe, turn on those notifications because there's not going to be another Raiders channel that keeps you guys up to date like I do. Subscribe, turn on those notifications. That way you guys never miss a thing. Let's go to the second half here of this quote from Mel Kiper. 5th round pick Nate Hobbs was a nice find in last year's draft, but this defense could use Booth, a 6-foot press coverage corner who allowed only one completion of more than 20 yards in 2021. He was extremely consistent over the past 2 seasons, locking down receivers. The Raiders ranked 27th in QBR allowed, 51.4 this season. Taking Booth would address a major weakness. Now, as it stands right now, here's the Raiders cornerback depth chart. Casey Hayward is a free agent. Desmond Trufant, free agent. Restricted free agent is Keyshawn Nixon, and Trayvon Mullen has dealt with tons of injuries, and Nate Hobbs can't find himself trying to stay out of the headlines for all the wrong reasons. So what I want you to do is this. Think about the Raiders cornerback depth chart right now, and then think about them taking Andrew Booth Jr. at number 22 overall. I want you to go down to the comments, type A, it's a great pick, B, it's a good pick, C, it's an D, it's bad, F, it's failing. If you do not bring back Casey Hayward, I think this is an A pick. if you do decide to bring back Casey Hayward and you have Mullen and you have Nate Hobbs, then I'm going to go ahead and say C, but it's not because I don't like the player. Andrew Booth Jr. is my second favorite cornerback behind only Sauce Gardner, who's the cornerback from Cincinnati. Now, when you talk about the draft in the offseason, you also got to talk about free agency. And Pro Football Focus, they released an article, one free agent, okay? Each team should go out and target. The top target, according to PFF, was Andrew Norwell. Now, I love Norwell. He's a good offensive lineman. Sure, he's getting up there in age a little bit, but an overall grade this season of 67.1. That was tied for 44th best offensive guard in the league. I'm also going to put a lot of blame because, well, you know, they had a lot of issues there in Jacksonville this year. Now, this is what PFF had to say on the Raiders targeting Norwell and why he should be their top guy. The Raiders hit the reset button along their offensive line in 2021, and the results were not pretty, particularly on the interior. Well, as it stands right now, here's what the Raiders' offensive line looks like. Richie Incognito, he's a free agent, but he's not going to be coming back. If you go ahead and decide to bring in Norwell, I'm a believer that he's then going to take over for John Simpson on that left side. Now, you could potentially get creative. Maybe you put Norwell on the left side. Maybe you try to kick Alex Leatherwood out to right tackle. Maybe you put John Simpson there, but I still think it's going to be Denzel Good. Could also be another option at tackle. All I'm saying is this. There are still a lot of question marks here on this offensive line for Las Vegas. Now, here's a continuing this whole why PFF thought that this made sense. Norwell is as solid as pass blocking guards come. Never have finished the season with a pass block grade below 70, which, yes, very impressive. An impressive streak, now entering his 9th season. At just 30 years old, Norwell still has good football ahead of him, and he may have something to prove after agreeing to a pay cut from the Jags before the 2021 season. Raiders quarterback Derek Carr was used to longtime stalwart left guard Richie Incognito protecting him, but age and health finally caught up to him. Norwell would be a great replacement. The only reason why I like PFF, but I mean, this quote alone shows that PFF has almost no idea what they're talking about, but they don't concentrate on the Raiders like we do. Longtime stalwart left guard Richie Incognito, he hasn't been there for that long, PFF. Newsflash. So who should be the Raiders' top priority in free agency when you think about all the positions at hand? I personally think that tackle is the biggest need, but I have a gut feeling. And my gut feeling is that most people, they're going to go out and they're going to say that it's Davante Adams. So here you go. If you want the Raiders to go out and get Davante Adams in free agency, I want you to go ahead and like this video. Major shout out to my guy on IG, LV Raiders today, for making this dope bet. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. But if you want the Raiders to go out and get Davante Adams, I want you to go ahead and like the video. Now, coming up here on the Raiders Report, we're going to get into the latest around Adams. But before I get into the latest around Tay, I got to tell you all about today's sponsor. Shout out to BetUS. If anybody wants to bet on the NFL playoff games, as I am making this video right now, the Rams, they're up 20-3 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 14 seconds left, and it is 2nd and goal for the Rams. I mean, Tom Brady's crying all over the place, probably because he's getting his butt whooped right now. But if you want to bet on the Chiefs and Bills game, if you want to bet on all the NFL playoff games, if you want to bet on who's going to be the next Raiders head coach, go to chatsports.com/Raiders. Promo code Raiders125. That's going to get you 125% deposit bonus. All right, let's get in now to the story here around Adams. And why are we talking about this? Because I actually think if the Raiders decide to keep Derek Carr, the number one priority this offseason is going to be getting Davante Adams in the silver and black. Now, obviously, he's going to be a free agent in 2022. I personally think he's the top free agent available out of all the positions. Now, the rumor is this, that the Packers, they could franchise tag him, and if Davante doesn't want that, you have a position where, sure, then you could do a tag or a trade and tag situation. But as it stands right now, Davante Adams is a free agent since the Green Bay Packers just lost to the San Francisco 49ers 13-10, and the 49ers advance. Now, I wanted the Packers to win that game because I hate the San Francisco 49ers, but it also kind of helps this idea of if Rodgers moves on, if Adams moves on, and if I was Adams, I'd be like, well, we just lost in the first round of the playoffs. Maybe it is time for me to leave. I mean, this guy had 123 grabs, over 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns. You want to talk about consistent? Davante Adams is just what you think about when you think about a consistent wide receiver. Now, Zay Jones stepped up this season, no doubt about it. But Zay Jones, who is a free agent, Deshaun Jackson, who is a free agent, these guys are not reliable wide receiver ones. I mean, Zay Jones on most teams is going to be a wide receiver 4. I was very disappointed from what I saw from Bryan Edwards and his lack thereof being able to create separation. I mean, if you go into the season and Bryan Edwards is going to be your wide receiver 2, that's not going to be something that I'm very confident in, for the simple fact of he just didn't show me a lot. So if I'm Las Vegas, I'm thinking not only do I got to add a receiver in the draft, I got to go out and sign somebody. Now, Davante is my number 1 guy. I clearly think that he is the best wide receiver prospect in free agency. But you know what? Maybe don't get Davante Adams. Coming in there at number 2, I think it's Allen Robinson. Chris Godwin, who's battling an ACL injury. You got Odell Beckham Jr., Michael Gallup. That's my top 5. And then 6 through 10, there's still a lot of really talented guys. Juju Smith-Schuster, good wide receiver 2. Christian Kirk, I like him. DJ Chark, a lot of people are sleeping on him. Cordell Patterson, if you bring in a new OC that can be a little bit creative, move Patterson all over the football field, I really like that idea. Now, Will Fuller is talented, but his injuries do scare me coming off a season where he had only 4 catches for 26 yards. Now, there's still more wide receivers in free agency, obviously, and as you saw from that list, there's a lot of really talented players. So I know if I asked y'all, hey, who's the number 1 receiver you want the Raiders to go out and sign, everybody, including my mother, would type Davante Adams. So, besides Davante Adams, you can't say it, I want you to name another wide receiver that Las Vegas should go out and get. Now, the final part of today's show definitely brings me some frustration because Nate Hobbs, less than 2 weeks ago, was charged with a DUI. On Friday, he was ticketed for doing 110 miles per hour on the highway. Now, somebody messaged me and said, hey, I live in Las Vegas. People go really fast on the 215 Beltway. Here's my thing, though. It's 65 miles per hour. There's no reason to be doing 110 miles per hour. And then it goes to this, right? I mean, DJ Hayden, I believe, like a week ago said, it's the off season. It's time to be smart. It's time to get yourself a driver. If I was Las Vegas, I would call up Nate Hobbs right now and say, sell your car. You are only going to be driving with us because over the last 2 weeks, you have not shown me or anybody that you are old enough or can act like an adult enough to actually make the right decision. So all I'm trying to say is this. I like Nate Hobbs. He is a hell of a player, and I do not want him to throw away his career like Henry Ruggs did. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to try to get a system in place where you can figure out what the hell is going on with these guys driving. And again, all I want to say is this. Be smart this offseason because your entire life can change just like that. Now, if you guys made it this far in the video, I appreciate y'all. Just always remember that we're going to continue to try to grow this channel. The more subs we get, the more videos we can create. And if you could, just remember, please, please, please be smart. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Hopefully the Rams win, and hopefully Buffalo wins as well.